earliest sources for this incident is Kitab Sulaym.
Sulaym bin Qais is alleged to be a companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, and so therefore, if this book was really written by him, then it's written by someone who would have met Imam Ali. He himself would not be an eyewitness, but he would have met people who were eyewitnesses. هجومهم على بيت فاطمة وإحراقه. Their attack on the house of Fatima and they're burning it. Basically, Umar, he gets very angry. He calls Khalid ibn al-Walid and Qunfud. He asks them to bring firewood and fire. He goes to the door of Ali and Fatima. Fatima was sitting behind the door. She had tied her head with cloth, and then he knocked the door. Fatima said, "What is the matter with you? Why don't you leave us?" He says, "Open the door, otherwise we are going to burn it." And she says, "Ya Umar, have you no fear of God? You attacked my home." And then he burnt the door, and then he pushed it, and then they mentioned striking a Siddiq al-Tahira. So when he entered the door, Fatima was the first to receive him. Then she cried out, "Ya Rasulullah." So then Umar lifted his sword. He attacked her side with it, and then he struck her arm. She again does istighatha, and she says, "Ya Abatah." Now, when all the damage has been done, now Ali ibn Abi Talib, he jumps into action. All this time he was just, I don't know, watching. He grabs Umar and throws him to the ground.
This is something interesting. Why didn't Imam Ali do anything? Actually, I would use Kitab Sulaym and say, look, here's defense that Imam Ali did do something.
Yeah, but I mean, look, when a traditional Shia says, "Ya Ali Madad," he assumes Imam Ali will come in time. But this narrative, when his own wife...
We have books like Al-Kafi. What's the difference between those kind of books and a book of Kitab Sulaym?
Al-Kafi, after it was written, it was received by multiple narrators, whereas the whole basis of Kitab Sulaym is secret transmission. A book that Sulaym bin Qais wrote and then secretly handed on to the next narrator. So it's a single chain, and the claim is that no one else knows about it other than the one who received it. What is generally used to prove the reliability of this whole narrative? It would say that Kitab Sulaym bin Qais has been declared to be one of the most authentic books in the Shia Hadith corpus. What they will cite is a list of Akhbari scholars who don't aslan believe in any critical engagement. So they will say, well, look, Al-Nu'mani has authenticated Kitab Sulaym, Muhammad Baqir al-Majlisi, Taqi al-Majlisi, Al-Muhaddith al-Nuri, Sheikh Muhammad al-Hassan. These are all Akhbari scholars who regarded Kitab Sulaym as authentic, but for today's Shias, these scholarly authentications should not mean anything, because these are the very same scholars who then also authenticate Tahrif al-Quran. So scholars who are authenticating a hadith about Tahrif, what's the value of their authentication? But within the Shia tradition, when you look at scholars who had greater sense of Rijali discernment, the book Tashihu I'tiqadat al-Imamiyya by Sheikh al-Mufid, you have a very important statement. So he says, what needs to be kept in mind is غير أن هذا الكتاب. What needs to be kept in mind is that this book is غير موثوق به. It is not a reliable book, and you are not allowed to act upon majority of what is in it. Why are they not reliable? He says, because there has been a lot of interpolation, a lot of stuff has been fabricated and added to this book. And so he ends by saying, وَلْيَفْزَعْ إِلَى الْعُلَمَاءِ. So a layperson should refer back to the scholars to find out which hadith is sahih. There might be a few narrations in it which may be authentic because qarina exists outside.
By what I'm understanding, if you're going to use Kitab Sulaym, make sure that you've got evidence from outside it. Don't use that as the evidence. For example, you've got a narration that's say Asanid and outside sources, the matan checks out, and the same narration comes in Kitab Sulaym. No problem, we'll take it.
Exactly.
If it's something that's an exclusive claim, only Kitab Sulaym reports it, how can that be hujjah?
Right.
And Sayyidah Zahra's martyrdom is in that category. I know you really want to prove this belief. I know we grew up on it, but you want to be people that are sincere to truth. You don't believe in something and then prove it. Rather, we need to look at the evidence and then make a belief. What we do is we believe in something first, and then we say, now we have to defend it at all costs. And this is what I believe, with all sincerity, is that a lot of Shias are doing on this. You're wanting to believe in this narrative and you're saying, we will defend Kitab Sulaym no matter what. Or let us show you what Kitab Sulaym says. And then I think anyone sincere will say, yeah, maybe I need to rethink this.
Right. The next book, Rijal ibn al-Ghadairi. Remember, Ibn al-Ghadairi is considered to be the foremost and the most reliable authority in Ilm al-Rijal by Sayyid Sistani. He says, our scholars used to say that Sulaym is an unknown person. وَلَا ذُكِرَ فِي خَبَرٍ. He has not been mentioned in any report. There used to be Shia scholars who used to doubt the very existence of Sulaym. But Ibn al-Ghadairi does not accept that. He says, no, I found mention of him in other independent reports. But now come to the main part. Al-Allama Ibn al-Ghadairi says, وَالْكِتَابُ مَوْضُوعٌ لَا مِرْيَةَ فِيهِ. He says, Kitab Sulaym mawdu'un. It is fabricated. And he says, this is not just a theory that I'm putting forward. La miryata fihi. There can be no doubt that Kitab Sulaym is a fabrication. He says, open the book and read the narrations in it. I can give you examples of narrations. What kind of narration? He says, for example, there is a narration that talks about Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr giving maw'idha to his father at the time of his death. Muhammad bin Abi Bakr was a toddler who would give maw'idha to his father at the time of death. That's something that's inconceivable. The next narration in it that indicates that an الأئمة 13. The Imam of Ahlul Bayt are 13. So basically, if you accept Kitab Sulaym, you have to accept that the Imams are 13, not 12. You can't be an Ithna Ashari then, because the Prophet tells Imam Ali that Allah has chosen 12 Imams after you and me. If there are 12 Imams after Imam Ali, that means if you add Imam Ali, it becomes 13 Imams. In some of the more recent editions of Kitab Sulaym, you will not find the hadith of 13 Imams because the editors have corrected it. They say it's a manuscript error, but actually it's not a manuscript error. You have this entry on Hibatullah ibn Ahmad, and so he wrote a book, and in that book Hibatullah ibn Ahmad mentioned that the Imams of Ahlul Bayt are actually 13. How are they 13? He says you have to add one more Imam, which is Zayd ibn Ali. So Imam Zayd, our Zaydi friends can be happy. Hibatullah ibn Ahmad is a Shia, and he's trying to claim that there are 13 Imams. So what is his proof? His proof is وَاحْتَجَّ بِحَدِيثٍ فِي كِتَابِ سُلَيْمٍ. He cited the hadith in Kitab Sulaym. And what does that hadith indicate? It indicates that إِنَّ الْأَئِمَّةَ إِثْنَا عَشَرٍ مِنْ وُلْدِ أَمِيرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. From the progeny of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Prophet says that there are going to be 12 Imams. So you can't be a 12er if you accept Kitab Sulaym. Rather, you will have to become a 13er like Hibatullah ibn Ahmad. What kind of manuscript error is it that, I mean, it's there in Ibn al-Ghadairi's manuscript, in Najashi's manuscript, in today's published editions. It's there everywhere except in some of the recent editions where they've tried to remove it. When Ayyam Fatimiyya comes, you're opening Kitab Sulaym and you're presenting the narrative of the incident of the door, but there is so much more in Kitab Sulaym. Kitab Sulaym also promotes the narrative that there are actually 13 Imams. How come you're leaving that out? Here's another report. Sulaym says, I heard from Salman, Abu Dhar, and from Miqdad. He says, I went to Imam Ali to confirm with him the veracity of this narration, and he confirmed it. What is the narration? Which Salman, Abu Dhar, and Al-Miqdad allegedly narrate. They said Ali ibn Abi Talib entered into the presence of Rasulullah while Aisha was seated behind him. وَالْبَيْتُ غَاصٌ. The house was completely full of people. So Imam Ali, because the house was full, could not find any place to sit. فَأَشَارَ إِلَيْهِ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. So now imagine, Rasulullah pointed and he said, Ha huna. He pointed backwards and he said, here, meaning come and sit behind me. Who is seated behind him? Aisha. But he is telling Imam Ali, come and sit behind me. So Imam Ali came and sat between Rasulullah and Aisha. وَأَقْعَى كَمَا يُقْعِ الْعَرَبِيُّ. And he sat down in the manner in which a Bedouin sits down. Al-Iq'a refers to the way a dog sits, the way it spread its legs. So Imam Ali, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, he spread his legs and he sat down. فَدَفَعَتْهُ عَائِشَةُ. So Aisha pushed him and she became furious and she said, could you not find for your backside a place other than my lap? Astaghfirullah. Can you imagine Imam Ali, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, sitting on the lap of non-mahram? I mean, what kind of mindset can dream up things like this? But then I know even the traditional Shia watching this would be like, okay, so what was this Ghali trying to prove? This is what he wants to prove. He says, فَغَضِبَ Rasulullah. So the Holy Prophet became very angry because Aisha pushed Ali. So he said, what's the matter with you? Do not hurt me in the matter of my brother Ali, because he is the leader of the faithful. Allah will place him on the bridge of Sirat. So he will make his friends enter Jannah and he will make his enemies enter the fire. Well, how about if someone were to question this narration? So notice how if the chain up to Aban and then from Aban to Sulaym, if you accept the chain is authentic, then there is nothing you have to discredit this narration, because from Sulaym onwards, look at who is in the chain. Salman, Abu Dhar, Miqdad, and Imam Ali is confirming it. And the narration has Imam Ali sitting, wal-'iyadhu billah, on the lap, and then she gets annoyed and pushes him and says, hasn't your backside got any other place to sit on except my lap? And presenting this is in itself something that I find so distasteful. The only reason I'm doing this is to awaken people's eyes. I want our brothers and sisters to develop some sort of ghaira, whereby they tell the scholars and the speakers who sit on the pulpit and narrate from a book like Kitab Sulaym, to tell them that, look, please do not present us fabricated narrations from a book that has got filth and nonsense of this kind. So this is also Rijal ibn al-Ghadairi, Aban ibn Abi Ayyash. He reported from Anas ibn Malik and also from Ali ibn al-Husayn alayhi salam. And as a narrator, he is da'if. Ibn al-Ghadairi says he's weak. No attention should be paid to him or to anything that he transmits. And then he says, وَيَنْسِبُ أَصْحَابُنَا وَضْعَ كِتَابْ سُلَيْم بِنْ قَيْسِ إِلَيْهِ. He says, our scholars attribute the fabrication and invention of Kitab Sulaym bin Qais to him. Yani, according to our scholars, it was Aban ibn Abi Ayyash who fabricated this book and then falsely attributed it to Sulaym ibn Qais. In other words, Sulaym ibn Qais, that companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen, never knew this book. He had nothing to do with it. And it was this particular narrator, Aban ibn Abi Ayyash, this weak narrator, who invented it and then attributed it falsely to Sulaym ibn Qais al-Hilali. Ayatollah Shaykh Muhammad Taqi Tustari, his statement about Ibn al-Ghadairi, he says, فَإِنَّ هَذَا الرَّجُلَ. He says, Ibn al-Ghadairi is an unparalleled, peerless scholar of ilm al-rijal. He says, a lot of people are disturbed at the fact that Ibn al-Ghadairi has discredited so many narratives. narrators. This is the whole reason why people tried to attack Ibn al-Ghadairi, is that he has exposed so many of the liars whose narrations are needed to prove some of the core Shia beliefs, like taqiyya of Imam. So that's why people are after Ibn al-Ghadairi. Al-Muhaqqiq al-Tustari says, if you read Rijal of Ibn al-Ghadairi, you will see that Ibn al-Ghadairi is extremely fair. And then he goes on to say that the decisive judgment on Ibn al-Ghadairi is that we have found that all the people that Ibn al-Ghadairi discredited, فَنَرَاهُ مُنْكَرًا, we see they're evil people and we find evil in their narrations. So he says, well, Ibn al-Ghadairi discredited Kitab, Sulaym, Tafsir Muhammad ibn al-Qasim, books of Ali ibn Ahmad, Kitab al-Hasan ibn Abbas. He says all of these books, if you open them, فَنَرَى كُلًّا مِنْهَا مُشْتَمِلًا عَلَى مُنْكَرَاتٍ, find every single one of them contains shockingly evil narration, that you will realize Ibn al-Ghadairi was perfectly justified in discrediting those books. The problem with Rijal Ibn al-Ghadairi was in the time of Sayyid al-Khuy, they were not sure if they could rely on Ibn al-Ghadairi because they were having problems identifying authentic chains of transmission for it. And that's why Sayyid Sistani, in volume 1 of his Mu'jam Rijal al-Hadith, he said Rijal Ibn al-Ghadairi is not established. We don't have proof to establish its authenticity. This much is known to a lot of people. The problem is, and I've seen this in research papers, they mention this part. What these scholars don't know is that Sayyid al-Khu'i, his stance was based on inferior research. He didn't have the resources. After Sayyid al-Khu'i, his student, Ayatollah Sistani, he continued the research and he was able to find even higher degree of proof for Ibn al-Ghadairi, to the point that he placed it on a higher pedestal than even Rijal al-Najashi, which was what Sayyid al-Khu'i used to mainly rely on. Now, where is the proof of this? Al-Imam al-Sistani, Imam al-Sistani, a one-man ummah, page 79. The student of Sayyid al-Sistani mentions, وَلَهُ آرَاءٌ خَاصَّةٌ. Sayyid al-Sistani has certain research-based stances which oppose the popular opinions within contemporary Shi'i scholarship, such as the discrediting of Ibn al-Ghadairi. After Sayyid al-Sistani came to the center stage, he made it clear that he does not accept the popular view that Rijal Ibn al-Ghadairi should not be relied upon. بَلْ يَرَى ثُبُوتَ الْكِتَابِ. Sayyid al-Sistani, on the contrary, he considers this book to be established. وَإِنَّ ابْنَ الْغَضَائِرِ هُوَ الْمُعْتَمَدِ. Sayyid al-Sistani maintains that Ibn al-Ghadairi is the ultimate authority in as far as authenticating and discrediting narratives is concerned. أكثر من النجاشي, even more than al-Najashi, whom Sayyid al-Khu'i used to refer to as the ultimate expert in al-Rijal. I can also show you his official website. Point number 5, he mentions it has become very popular not to rely on the discreditings of Ibn al-Ghadairi, but Sayyid al-Ustad does not accept this. بل يرى ثبوت الكتاب. He accepts that the book is established and Ibn al-Ghadairi is the ultimate reliable authority in the matter of authenticating and discrediting narrators more than al-Najashi, whom Sayyid al-Khu'i used to extensively rely on. So this is the opinion. How did he arrive at this opinion? Qabasat min ilm al-Rijal, page 67. And this is a really long research paper. You can see how well referenced it is. Here is a website that's run by some Shia scholars. The scholar is asked about Sayyid Sistani's opinion about Kitab Sulaym bin Qais. He points out that Sayyid Sistani's office was asked this question: what is the degree of authenticity for this book? Fi sanadihi ishkal. The office of Sayyid Sistani responds by saying, in its chain, there are problems. The chain is problematic, basically. So much more they could have added here, but
He's saying it in a very
soft manner. I don't know if you've watched my lecture on why Maraji are silent. I've tried to shed light on how difficult it is for Maraji to reform these things in an open manner. But you can see Sayyid Sistani's office has given you a lot of food for thought. And obviously the audience should then ask, if the sanad is so problematic that Ayatollah Sistani's office is having to admit this, then why is this being recited from our manabir? And not only that, but this narrative is being constantly presented from the mimbar in such a way that it is fueling sectarianism and sectarian hatred. If this narrative was true, we would be screaming it and we would be openly invoking la'na of Allah upon the perpetrators. Sayyidah Zahra salamullahi alayha is a figure who is sacrosanct. Even Aisha has to testify that when she used to enter the room, qama ta'ziman laha, the Holy Prophet would stand up out of respect and reverence for her. So if anything happened against her, we would have no hesitation in perpetually invoking the la'na of Allah on all the perpetrators. We are not saying Sayyidah Fatema salamullahi alayha should not be remembered. The Quran says وَذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ Maryam. But obviously look at how the Quran mentions the story of Maryam. It mentions it in a way that brings out her moral excellence, her chastity, her reliance in Allah. So if our commemorations, instead of focusing on false and fabricated narratives, we were to focus on the legacy of Sayyidah Fatima, her life, her piety, her taqwa, her commitment to the deen, basically inspiring lessons from her life and legacy, that would be something we would all support and like to be a part of. Let me be honest with you, Sayyid Rada, I've been reciting Ayyam Fatimiyya for many years. And when I used to recite Ayyam Fatimiyya, it used to be on women's rights in Islam. And I used to use the example of Sayyidah Fatima, talk about the teachings of Ahlul Bayt and the maqam and status of women in Islam and all of that. And I never recited cited the incident of the door.